author at Politico, and Charlotte Griffiths, editor-at-large of The Mail on Sunday. We're going to kick off our news review. Thanks for joining us this Friday. So should we kick off with electric vehicles, Stefan? We're going to go to The Telegraph, I believe, for this story. I'd love to have an EV, but I don't have the kind of infrastructure enabled to have one. What's the story here?
No, and if you're buying a Chinese one, you might be bugged by the government, it sounds like, according to the story from...
Not.
Well, I hope not. But yes, so this is a story from Ben Riley-Smith at The Telegraph this morning, that the government was warned a couple of years ago that the Chinese government have the ability and potentially the intention to bug EVs made by Chinese car companies like BYD in the UK. And I think the key thing about this story is it just shows that in reality the Chinese Communist Party can have access to all Chinese companies, and because of the state-run nature of the economy over there, it means everything we do import does have security implications. We've seen this in Huawei, for instance, which was why they weren't allowed to build the UK's 5G infrastructure, and we see this across a whole load of products in the UK economy. So I think that this is something that the government has to grapple with and has to really consider what they want to do in terms of having a local industry, and whether we want to buy our cars from China and from other countries which are considered a threat to us, or we do buy locally if we can get that industry, even alive.
Charlotte?
Well, far from grappling with it, they're giving all the government ministers electric cars. And of course, they're the one person who really don't want their information leaked from their cars, from their vehicles. Those private conversations are really, really important, secretive conversations. But of course, they have to meet their net zero target, so these cars are being rolled out. I mean, hopefully that will now stop. And the really scary thing about this article is they're saying even cars that are assembled in the UK using Chinese parts might be bugged. So, obviously the technology must be minute and very intricate and very difficult to weed out. And it makes me think of that time when we all got Alexas for the first time. Remember a few years ago, and everyone thought those were bugged. And when we all started having cameras on our laptops for the first time, and everyone thought those might be bugged. I mean, potentially, actually, all of these things could be bugged. And often there's a little flare-up of worry when new things come out. And then it disappears and we just get used to it. But obviously, we need to keep on top of it, really.
Just keep your smart device at home on mute is my advice.
Yes. And no TikTok.
Yes, well, that's a whole nother story. Let's move on to The Guardian, please. Minister scrambled to stop Labour rebellion on disability benefit cuts. Talk us through this, Charlotte.
Well, this is basically saying backbenchers won't be disciplined this time round. In fact, they can abstain if they want to. And obviously, it's such a contentious subject, and the far left of the party will be extremely worried that their constituents won't be very happy with them. They won't get re-elected. And it's just a real change of tack to the early months of the Labour government when, the whip was pretty strict about these kind of things and very much disciplining the MPs.
OK. Stefan, it's a huge issue that we've spent hours and hours of broadcasting covering. It's going to be a big issue whether backbenchers don't have to vote or abstain. They're not going to dodge this bullet, essentially.
Yeah, I think within Westminster it's a really big party discipline issue, and it sort of speaks to the fact that already we're seeing the really hard choices that are having to be made by the government, and how their backbenchers are actually beginning to get a bit restless, in some of them anyway. I mean, there is a big portion of people who are involved in this who are MPs that are on the far left of the party. They're always going to find something to complain about, and they're just a bit grumpy about the centrist nature of the government. But then you are getting some people within this rebellion who are more moderate, or at least, a bit more to this called the soft left, the centre of the party. People who, some of them are genuinely quite loyal and want to get on, but they do feel that they can't stand by these cuts. I mean, I think it's going to be a massive issue when we get to that vote. And I think, people like me and other people in the lobby are going to be counting very, very carefully to see what the numbers are and what this means for future policy decisions, and whether, future rebellions can be effective.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest sources of tension, I'd say, for the Labour Party, Charlotte.
Yeah, I think this and possibly the farming issue as well. And of course, they've been so steadfastly, not for U-turning. And I wonder whether, if this rebellion goes ahead, or if the vote doesn't go their way, whether that might have implications for future.
We'll see. Let's talk WhatsApp groups now. And this is in the Mail. It's page 8, and it's Robert Jenrick. My biggest bugbear is being added to a group that I didn't really want to be added to. But here we are. Robert Jenrick has sparked fears of a Tory coup, essentially, because he added lots of people to a group.
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to be added to this one. 500
Maybe,
Tories.
I
and,
mean-
well, I mean, it got some big figures in there. So basically, Robert Jenrick, Shadow Justice Secretary, was trying to add people to a group to try to get them to donate to his marathon cause, and it ended up that he invited most of his contact list, if not all of them. It meant that Boris Johnson, David Cameron, a whole lot of journalists, all sorts of people were put in it. And I think that there's some really good reporting as well in The Spectator that not only did this happen and was a bit of a laugh, but people were starting to get on there and start to say, oh, you're doing such a good job on holding the government to account. We should be doing more of this. And the tension is, some people increasingly in the Tory party think that he's doing a much better job than Kemi Badenoch, the actual leader. So the fact that, she was on that group, her team was, they started to see the way that some Tories, including some very big beasts, were reacting to him. It does create tension, and it does create some sort of sense that we are at a time when we're going to start to get some leadership chatter if Kemi Badenoch doesn't start to improve a bit and those poll numbers don't start to go the right way for her. And Jenrick is clearly, right now is someone who is a bit on manoeuvres, I think.
Yeah, and despite losing that contest against Kemi, some voices saying actually he hasn't stopped campaigning since that time, and maybe this just adds to that, Charlotte.
It definitely adds to that. And he's always writing articles in papers. It feels like he's still very much campaigning. And I'm sure a lot of these 600 people thought, here we go, this is the beginning of the leadership challenge. But what I thought was quite amusing about this is that he spent the whole day removing people. It took quite a long time. So people were getting removed 2 or 3 hours after they'd been added. And, nobody likes being removed from a WhatsApp group. It's a horrible dagger to the heart, I always find.
No, but there is an etiquette to WhatsApp, isn't there?
Yeah.
Some of the aides had to remove each person one by one, like you say.
Yeah.
But if you just left quietly, I mean, that's not really the etiquette, is it, for WhatsApp?
No, you can't just leave. But it doesn't any longer tell you when you've left a group. It doesn't tell the rest of the group. Yes, they've stopped that, yeah.
Excellent move. I'll be leaving a few groups later today. Let's move on to The Sun, the front page. No-fly throne. This was that no-fly zone over King Charles's home in Windsor after Zelensky visited Stefan.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that this wasn't already a thing. I mean, the fact that this had to come in just very recently, considering the obvious security implications of having drones or other, sort of flying devices above any sort of area where you have royal family, government ministers. I know in terms of Number 10 and in terms of Whitehall, it's really clamped down on, but I'm surprised to see how lax it's been. And the fact that this has been a catalyst for it is clearly a good thing, but it also shows that there's going to be a massive security task and a massive operation to try to beef things up for when Donald Trump does come here over in Windsor in September, when the state visit is set to now to happen.
Are you surprised by this front page, Charlotte?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I can't believe it wasn't already in place. If nothing else, before any Russia debate, before any Zelensky visit, photographers have been the biggest bugbear of the royal family for decades. And one of the people that they did catch using a drone around this time was a photographer. And the other person was a mysterious man, could well have been a spy. So if nothing else, it should have been in place for the photographs, let alone for the fact that Zelensky's been to visit. It's extraordinary, really. And yeah, high time. And it's a 365-day ban, so there will be no breaks.
OK, let's move on to the Mail, page 6 and 7. J.K. Rowling on that super yacht reacting to that high Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman, which is now biological.
Well, clearly she's celebrating, and of course the ruling said, look, no one person should be celebrating, no one group should be celebrating over another over this. But JK is celebrating by smoking a cigar and having a cocktail on her £150 million super yacht. I knew she was wealthy. I actually didn't know she was the kind of person that went around on her own personal super yacht. But obviously she's extremely happy. And then you've got on the other side of the coin, Lloyds Bank have sent out a missive to all their staff saying, please look after anyone who's feeling really sad by this. It says if you're a line manager and you've got any upset members of staff on your team, please comfort them. So it goes to show, I actually think that Lloyds have gone a little bit too far, may even be virtue signalling, because the email was quite over the top. But I think on either side, they've gone sort of too far the other way, and the whole point about this clarification was just to keep things calm and keep people sort of reacting in a normal way to normal facts of life, really.
Yeah, the reacting will continue. Scottish ministers have asked for an urgent meeting with Westminster, Stefan, over this gender ruling.
Yeah, and I think that we're going to start to see, I have no doubt, lawsuits from all sorts of places, because while I have no idea what Lloyds would do or any other bank, I have no doubt there'll be plenty of community groups, businesses, all sorts of places which probably won't abide by the rules, and there will be complaints and there'll be lots of lawsuits about this. So this is something that's going to keep on rolling on. And in terms of the Scottish government, I mean, it's all started with them really, and it started with Nicola Sturgeon in 2018 trying to go a different way in terms of how single-sex spaces were judged, and whether it would be on biological sex or how someone refers to themselves and considers themselves. And this is a massive loss for them and a massive loss for the SNP. But I think politically it could actually quite help them, because up there I think that a lot of their supporter base would be quite galvanised by this, to be honest.
OK, we'll leave that there. Can we just skip to the Mirror, it's page 18, and it's this two-toed sloth, Rico. Just for the pure pictures itself, it went through kind of a dentistry emergency operation because there was a bit of a swelling on the side of its face, and it's a success.
You'd make a great editor of newspaper, particularly pure pictures only. I'm afraid to say, look, it's just a really gorgeous picture of a sloth. I mean, the sloth has had 2 teeth operated on. It's possibly not the biggest of the year, but I was really happy to read it because we all love a sloth, and it's Good Friday, and it's nice to have a bit of joy amongst all this turmoil in the rest of the papers.
And well done to the team there at Chester Zoo, particularly the conservation programme.
Yeah, it is actually quite a feat of science, so I'll give it to them.
We're going to have to leave it there. Stefan, Charlotte, great to have your company this Friday. Thank you so much. We'll take a look at the weather.